Hi everyone, welcome to today's interview. Sorry we're a few minutes late. It's completely my fault. It's tech issues. So my name is Katie Montgomery, and I'm a dickhead who argues on the internet. And today I am joined by the amazing and lovely Jen Ives. Hi Jen, would you like to introduce
Hello.
yourself?
Hello, I'm Jen Ives. I'm a dickhead on the internet and in to people on a day-to-day basis. So I'm a comedian, a stand-up comedian, and a writer in London, and a trans woman
And you should all go
as
and
well.
follow Jen. So I put her Twitter just below on the screen. And
Thank you.
also go and check out her live show. So I actually managed to catch the end of it last night in quite a funny situation. I could only get there like quite late, so I turned up and ended up just hearing the last half of it. Like I was sat in a corridor, so sneakily listening in.
Yeah, which
But
and you
no,
could have come in if you wanted to, but
but
yeah.
you
So
know, like when you walk into a comedy show late and then you have to walk past like the comedian and they like shred you.
yeah,
Um,
I wouldn't have done that to you. I'm nice, despite what everyone's saying at the moment.
but yeah, so it's an amazing show and really funny, and you should definitely go and check it out. Do you have any more dates coming up that you want to hype or?
Well, the show is called Peak Trans, and it will be at Leicester Comedy Festival whenever that's on, and Edinburgh next year. And when I do previews, the best way to check is just to go to jenives.net, and there'll be information on there or on my
Oh, cool.
Twitter. But I'm always gigging. But yeah, if you want to see the show, I'll let you know when it's on.
But we're not just here just to hype Jen's show, though it is really good. We're also discussing the LGB Alliance Conference. So, for anyone who doesn't know, LGB Alliance are a UK charity, which is basically they've formed an anti-trans group to lobby against trans rights, and they're going behind the cover of claiming they support gay rights. And anyone who's spent any time like fighting for trans rights or LGBT rights will know that a classic strategy of any anti-minority position is to pretend they're protecting another minority. Like absolutely
Yeah.
classic. You see like the anti-immigrant people claim they care for gay people, like the anti-gay people claim they're caring about women, and the anti-trans people claim they're caring about, it's all the same stuff, and it's just the same again. And LGB Alliance seem to be doing reasonably well at tricking people or pretending that they're, a credible organization.
Mm.
But they recently held a conference in London, which was their first conference, and they spent a horrific amount of money on this conference. And we were all wondering what was going on. And for some reason, Jen decided to go.
I did decide to go. Well, look, the thing is, I signed up to the mailing list for LGB Alliance quite a while ago, just to kind of keep an eye on what they've been up to, as you do. And I got this email one day just saying we're having our first conference, and it said you have to be there. It's our first one. It's a historic event. So I thought, well, you said I have to be there, so I went. Yeah, I spent it. It was painful spending £85 on a ticket, but
85.
well, I only found out after there was a discounted ticket rate for about £50 for people who read gay and lesbian news, lesbian and gay news, whatever it's called. I don't, so
Obviously, you don't.
I missed that. But the other thing is the way I saw it was they're the LGB Alliance. I am bisexual, so I was like, well, it says I'm welcome, so I'll come along. So yeah, I went.
I think that a lot of people are like when you hear this, like, oh, there's this hate group and stuff. I think people are kind of reluctant to just instantly jump on board with, oh, it's a hate group. And you kind of
Mm,
want, like, I felt like I want to give these people the benefit of the doubt, and I feel like that with lots of these new groups. Some of them not at all, because it's just very obvious. When they're like, no, we're the credible organization, especially for me, the first one that I really wanted to take seriously and take at their word to start with was Women's Place UK, because they just seemed very credible. And we want to talk about women's rights, and we just want to discuss trans rights and stuff. And I kind of took them at their word, like you're suggesting here, of like, well, I'm a bisexual person, so I should be welcome.
mhm.
How are they going to treat me? But I mean, you must have known some of the hype around them, how did you feel like as a trans person? Did you feel like something might happen, or did you feel nervous, or?
So I've had interactions with the LGB Alliance before, and I know what they are. I know what they're like. I know what their view of trans people is. I'd say the only thing I was worried about slightly was how they would react around the use of toilets. So I phoned them beforehand to, check on that. And they told me that they were going to have toilet guards, like attendants, like
toilet guards.
Yeah, like making sure that, no trans-identified males were going in. So I was like, oh, great, that's a relief. So basically, look, the point is that it's a public event, right? It's a thing that anyone can buy a ticket to, and there's lots of celebrities there. Graham Linehan was there, various people like that. So I thought, well, this is my only chance to. The thing is, right, we interact with these people so much online, and the public face that they want to give off at the moment, and they are, as you said, they are a registered charity now, so they hold this certain level of. They need to hold this certain level of public face now.
Yeah.
They always want to claim that they're only about preserving the sex-based rights of gay, lesbian, and bisexual people, and that they don't really mention the trans because they don't see it as their issue. The problem is, if you look at the brochure, most of the talks, most of the things are centered around trans identity, and with the implication that trans people are sort of like a problem. So I just wanted to talk to these people. I just wanted to see what the event was going to be. I wanted to hear firsthand what they were saying. And honestly, and to answer your question, no, I didn't. I mean, obviously, like I knew that, I had a feeling that I wouldn't maybe be 100% welcome, but at the end of the day, it's at the Queen Elizabeth II Centre. I'm a person like any other, and I paid to go. So
yeah, and that is a government venue, right?
I believe it's owned by the government. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, I don't quite know what the rules would be if you had. So, for example, if you had a private party in your house, mm-hmm. and you had toilets, and you said this is a no trans person toilet, and it was in your house, I don't quite know what the law would be there. And if you tried to go and they threw you out, you could probably just throw someone out of your house. I mean, that seems quite reasonable. Yeah. But if it's in like some government venue, they can say, oh, we have toilet genital inspectors on the door, but they're not legally allowed to stop you from going to the toilet there.
Right. And they didn't.
I was going to say, did they have the inspectors that they promised?
No. So just for clarity, the person who told me that there were going to be toilet guards was a woman who mans the phone line for the official LGB Alliance charity phone line, switchboard, whatever. I've spoken to her before on the phone, and I phoned a couple of weeks before the conference firstly I wanted to find out what kind of sandwiches there were going to be, and I wanted to find out a little bit of information about the disco that was happening later, but I also wanted to find out the toilet situation, and she assured me that there would be toilet guards there to make sure. And then I also phoned Rob because he does PR. So this is press or whatever.
Yeah. So this is Rob Jessel.
Yeah, Rob Jessel.
Who is also the co-founder of We Are Fair Cop, who are famous in the trans world for their Say Yes to Hate campaign on Trans Day of Remembrance, which is the day we remember trans people killed to transphobic violence around the world. Mm-hmm. So just worth pointing that out, I think. But anyway, sorry, Karen, you phoned Rob Jessel.
I phoned him, yeah. I inquired about whether or not that was true, because it sounded, I wasn't sure about the law. It sounded a little bit weird. So I phoned him, and he said that he wasn't sure, I think he said. And but then he got back to me and he said that there won't be. So I was like, okay, great. So when I got there, the first thing I did when I got to the Queen Elizabeth II Centre is I used the women's toilets.
So it happened.
I did it. That was downstairs. I did it, yeah. And Yay! I also, and I came out of the toilets and I washed my hands around a fair few gender critical women who didn't bat an eyelid at me. And then again later, after the first talk, I then used the women's toilets on that level in the middle of the conference. And again, no one said anything to me. I interacted with various different people, had conversations, bought a t-shirt, did lots of stuff.
On the toilets thing, I just want to like make clear, because I guess we're going to have probably going to have a range of people watching this, and there's going to be trans people and like, you know, LGBT rights people, but there also is probably going to be some gender critical people watching this, and maybe some who don't quite know. I guess I just wanted to put some framing on this. We're talking about like, oh, Jen got to go to the toilets and the thing. Like, this is completely normal. Like, I go to the women's toilets every single day of my life and have for years. And I never think, in any situation, I never think, oh, I'm washing my hands next to a woman. Like, oh, maybe she'll... Like, I just do it. I don't even think... I went to the toilet earlier in a public space, in a women's toilet. It's literally earlier today. I didn't think about it because, of course, I don't think about it. Like, I don't think about it like any cis woman watching this wouldn't think, oh, I'm washing my hands next to someone. What if they think I'm a man? And I think that the important context here is that not that you're in the women's toilets in a public space, it's that you're in the women's toilets in a gender critical event. And that has a totally different spin. It's got this kind of like, they're all telling me on the internet all the time that when they see someone they even suspect might be trans, they're uncomfortable or whatever. And then if you go in, either they have clocked that you're trans and they don't care, or they haven't clocked that you're trans, and that's kind of part of the point.
Yeah, it's a pertinent point. Yeah.
So I just want to point that out because there can be this kind of like, when trans women talk about going to the toilet, it's like, oh, I went to the toilet and it was fine. Sometimes gender critical people go away like, oh, they were loving it. They were loving the fetish of it. Like, we're just pointing out that it's normal, and that's worth highlighting in this situation.
I mean, I've been using the women's toilets for over 10 years now, and honestly, when I got there, me and my friend who I went with, we just had a massive coffee, and I needed to, I did, and no one stopped me.
And they couldn't have legally stopped you anyway, but it could have been a confrontation, which would have been unpleasant.
That would have been unpleasant if that had happened. If someone had confronted me at the conference, that would have been terrible.
So I just want to, just because you mentioned it, I was going to bring this up later, but you just mentioned it. You bought a t-shirt at this event.
I bought a t-shirt.
Would you like to show us the t-shirt?
I would. I bought it off Mr. Menno, who was manning the t-shirt stall. I bought this one. There was lots of choices. They were £20 each, but this one was the one that I went for. You see that?
Yeah. So that says, for anyone just listening, the female penis doesn't stand up, which is, we're here in trans world, we're loving this t-shirt because they've obviously trying to do some erection pun, and you know, about the female penis or whatever, and they don't agree that women can have a penis. But also, this is really funny in trans world because HRT affects your ability to have erections a lot of the time. So we're getting into a bit TMI territory here. But so it's kind of, this is like a trans meme.
TMI or TIM, am I right?
And they've accidentally put on a t-shirt, so it almost feels like a little bit of a cell phone. But anyway, it's a good t-shirt, and I'm kind of jealous you've got one. I'll definitely buy one.
I would encourage people to buy them from independent sellers, not like I did. But see if you can get them from, I don't know, a trans seller or something.
Yeah, but so there was, you did have some interactions with some gender critical people, and I know I've seen you talking about them on Twitter, and there's been some disagreement between you and some of the gender critical people that you interacted with about what really happened. And I think this is interesting. So one thing that I guess maybe you could reveal that makes these interactions interesting is when it's he sheds, she shells on the seashore. When it's he said, he/him said, and she/her said, then it's, you know, anyone could say, and there's more of them. But
well, just to preface, so just to drag it on a little bit longer, I talked to a lot of people while I was there, and it was very civil and very nice. No one, you know, I didn't mention that I was trans, but you know, like, I was just having conversations. A bit later on in the day, I did mention that I was trans because I wasn't hiding it per se. It came up naturally in conversation, and I told somebody. Then there was an altercation, which we can talk about in a minute if you want.
Yes.
But what's been really interesting to me is that after the altercation happened, you know, I did have some people talk to me about it, including Rob and including various other nameless members of the LGB Alliance. Some of them were half apologized, but they all certainly admitted that it did happen. But over the past couple of days on Twitter, there's been a lot of talk at me about you're lying. There's been testimonies from people who were there saying, we saw you, you were just sitting, eating your lunch, watching us, you left early, you didn't do anything, nothing happened. That would be fine, but the problem is that I was recording the whole event with a wire like the whole time. So I have I have the altercation, I have the conversations that preceded it, I have the chat with Rob afterwards. Like I have it all, and they're pressuring me to put it out, but I don't want to yet because of the legality of it and stuff. You know, I'm trying to work that out. But
so I can say that I've heard lots of the recordings, and from my understanding of what I've seen Jen saying is happening, and then me listening to it, like that's an accurate reflection of what happened. Perhaps we can discuss that more later, but I'm just adding my reputational weight to those claims.
I appreciate that, because at the moment that's what I need. I need people to validate at least that the recordings exist, because these people are convinced that
I've
they
heard
don't.
them. Yeah.
And Rob in particular has been going back and forth a little bit at me on Twitter, saying, you know, publish and be damned, and all these very melodramatic things. He knows what happened, and I will be making a formal complaint to the Queen Elizabeth II Centre about how lax their security was in dealing with the incident, and I will hopefully they'll be able to supply some evidence that it happened too.
Would you like to go into the incident now, or would you like to do the build up to what happened?
No, sure, I think I can go into. Yeah. Well, okay, yeah. I mean, so I think you kind of need the build up anyway. So basically, I was having one of many conversations that I had. I basically walked around every stall that was there. Just for the record, not that many stalls, probably about 15. But I went around all of them, including, you know, Sex Matters, Women's Lesbian Labour, all these stalls.
WHRC?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I can't remember. I picked up lots of pamphlets and stuff. I've got a whole collection. I've got my LGB Alliance lanyard there as well. That would be worth something one day. Anyway, so I was having a conversation with two young men. I won't go into too much detail right now about who they were and stuff, but I was having a conversation with two young men who were both, I think they both were wearing LGB Alliance t-shirts, and they certainly were pro the Alliance. And we were having, honestly, a nice discussion with one of these guys in particular. It was very civil. It was, you know, just, it wasn't even necessarily about specifically trans identity. We were just talking about lots of stuff. But there was another guy who was there talking to us, and he was a little bit more intense. He was a little bit more, I would say, radical. He was saying various different things, some about, you know, jumping from topic to topic, you know, about Islam, about trans people. It was, and the first guy that I was talking to, the guy who I'll call for this, like the nice guy, he was very vocal and verbal about how he disagreed with his friend. You know, he said, I don't share this guy's beliefs. It came up, I can't remember exactly how, but it came up in conversation. I think he was talking about trans people a lot. And he was talking about how, I think he was talking about how deceptive we are or something. And so I told him that I was trans at that point. It was about the tone of, like, I was like, well, you know, I'm trans, right? You've been talking to a trans person.
Yeah.
When I said that, his face kind of dropped, and he kind of said he had to go, and he left. He went out into the conference, into the sort of panel area where the second talk of the day was happening. I decided not to go to the second talk. I went to the first talk. I decided not to go to the second because I was in this conversation with this person. So most people were in watching the talk, but there were people milling around outside, such as Malcolm and various other characters.
So for anyone who doesn't know, Malcolm Clark is one of the founders, I think, of LGB Alliance.
He's a bald man with a terrible fashion sense. His belt was the worst thing I saw on the day.
The worst anti-trans thing that happened all weekend was
it really distressed me. It triggered me hard.
I've seen it. It was a suboptimal belt choice.
Yeah. Anyway, so this guy, he went off out back into the main room where the talks were happening. Now, the guy that I was talking to originally continued to be nice to me. Sort of like...
Good.
He actually said some really nice things. He said, like, you know, I respect you, like, I respect your pronouns, I will do that, you know. He was like, despite the fact that we disagree on some things, he was like, basically we got into a little bit of a conversation about society and about what his sort of utopian and utilitarian goals are for the future. It wasn't, the reason I bring this up, the reason I give you details about how we were talking and what we were talking about is during the incident, which I'll get into in a minute, I was accused of bullying an autistic man.
So I just... This nice guy is who they're referring to in that.
I think they might be referring to both of them.
Okay.
I don't know. This is the thing. I don't know these people. I don't have any knowledge of their autism status or anything like that. I don't know. We were having
not sensible to speculate either.
Exactly, and that's not what I want to do. And I was just having a conversation with two people not about autism.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what happened is I could tell that even though this guy that I was talking to was being very civil and we were still talking nicely, I could tell that he wanted to end the conversation. And he kept saying, I'm going to go
that's what
now.
I'm feeling right now, so...
Yeah, no, I know. And basically he said, I'm going to go. And I said, okay. And I basically said, well, before you go, can I just say, I said something like, can I just ask you to do something for me? I said, like, would you please just listen to more perspectives and try to meet more trans people and try to attend some things that aren't as radical and stuff. Anyway, we said goodbye nicely. And then as I was going, I said to him, I made a little joke because that's the kind of thing that's kind of tone that we were talking at. I went, I'm going to go and use... Exactly. I went, I'm going to go and use... I said it quite loudly. I went, I'm going to go and use the women's toilets now. Don't tell anyone like that. And he didn't. This is what I have to preface. He didn't. He actually said something along the lines of like, I won't kind of thing. And he went off. And then
he was in on the joke.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, so I walked I would say about 20 feet back over to my friend David, who was there with me to support me. I walked over towards him. And then as soon as I got to him, and this is in the same room, just over by the doors, the other guy who left, he ran over to me and he had a woman with him who had a name tag called Victoria M, something, I don't know. She claims it's not her real name. That's on the recording. Anyway, he ran over to me and he started calling me a fucking nonce and told me to fuck.
He said for like fetishistic AGP as well, right?
He said a lot. There was a lot of... He was very upset. He was really, really upset. I didn't rise to him. I just kind of stood there, and then I was surrounded after a little while by like various gender critical women and him. He then got his camera out and was like right in my face filming me, continuing to call me a fucking nonce, said something about how he couldn't get a blood test, but I can always get a blood test for my...
that was weird.
My perverted hormones or something.
He did say perverted hormones. You can get a blood test for your perverted hormones. I was like... He was saying a lot. He was basically reeling off every kind of like weird talking point he's learned from LGB Alliance. And anyway, regardless of that, he said some disgusting things. Absolutely. confrontational, abusive, and obviously transphobic.
But what I think is worse than that is the way that the people around him were reacting. For example, there were a couple of people that came up to him and basically said to him, don't engage, you know, which he wasn't listening to. But the majority of the people that were around him, his fellow LGB Alliance people, they were kind of helping him. They were kind of like starting to debate, like trying to debate me. And say, they were saying things like, you've upset him. Your presence here is political. You've come here to use the women. He kept saying, you've come here to use the women's toilets. Like basically accusing me of being a rapist. That's basically what the vibe of the whole thing was. And then a lot of the women around him were pointing at me and kind of saying like, what do you expect, you know, coming here? Like he was saying like, you're not welcome, and literally, and they were saying like, they were saying like, you knew what was going to happen, you know, if you came here, like we're not going to let you use, like it was intense. It was a lot. There were a lot. There were a few, like more and more people gathering around me, and the security were doing nothing. It felt like every kind of minute that passed, it was like more people were coming, and then eventually he went away, the guy, but the security was still just watching on. And I said to the security, you're doing a really shit job. And shortly after, after basically these people, these LGB Alliance people were just having conversations with themselves. I'm still standing there like a lemon, and they're just like literally just discussing, like the thing that's crazy about them is they can't stop discussing like theory. Like they just can't, they just can't stop. And the thing I was trying to get across to them was like, I'm not here to debate, especially not right now. Like I'm here because I've literally just been like verbally assaulted, and I'm trying to figure out how to de-escalate the situation. But people, they weren't interested in that. So eventually this Rob character came back, and he had his like diplomatic fucking robotic automaton face on, and he took me over to the press area or whatever, which we couldn't go in because there was like a couple of journalists in there. So we just, again, I'm still in the space. I'm sat over in the like dining area bit, still surrounded completely by gender critical people, like not a private area or anything. Having an extremely diplomatic discussion about, you know, he said like, I'm sorry, you know, this shouldn't have happened. We want you to have a nice time at the conference. I hope this doesn't, you know, ruin your whole day. Can you tell me what happened? Like all this stuff, you know, all this like snaky, like public facing self-preservation shit. I told him that like I you know, I had a right to be there, you know, I wasn't going anywhere kind of thing.
Yeah.
This is the other thing. People are trying to claim that we just turned up at lunch and then left early.
Right, caused a scene.
Yeah. Truth is, I was one of the first people there. I was pretty early. Like we got there at like 9 o'clock.
Well, you didn't want any t-shirts to sell out.
Well, exactly. Got there at 9 o'clock before, like, when everything was relatively quiet. Got there at 9 o'clock, stayed till about 3 o'clock. Stayed for another hour or so after this incident. And yeah, I was just sitting down for that because I was just trying to kind of like stubbornly kind of be like, I'm not going, you know, you want me to go, I'm not going to go. I didn't actually leave the building for another hour after that because something else happened downstairs, which I can get into. But anyway, where was I?
So I guess, like in this kind of situation, like I you know, have been confronted by transphobic people saying things. I've never actually been confronted by someone who believes these like super online gender critical conspiracy theories like autogynephilia and you're coming here to like like usually the experiences I've had in the past, and you know, I haven't had any for a long time, which is I'm very grateful of, have been, you know, like traditional transphobia, like just yuck, you're disgusting, tranny, you know, that kind of thing. And when, like, I've had one that I felt was escalating to violence, like I needed to, we had to run, and that was terrifying. And I guess, you know, that is different to this situation. It's a different scene. But I have been in a situation before as well where I've been like, this isn't going to escalate to violence. That isn't my concern. But it's so horrible to stand there and just take this like disgusting things that they're saying about you. But then I absolutely get that feeling when that happens, and then they go away or whatever. I don't want to then leave. I don't want them to have like asserted dominance in this space and just told me I'm worthless, and then me have to go skulking off. Like I once had an incident where some people shouted a load of abuse at me in the shop, and I did have to leave because it was just so upsetting. And then the next day I woke up and I just felt this drop. I have to go back to this shop today, because otherwise this shop is always going to remind me of that time that like these people made me feel worthless. And I just went back, and it was just like it was Superdrug, and I just went back into Superdrug and I just bought the thing that I was originally planning to buy.
Yeah.
And it did make a difference to just like stand my ground. Like
yeah, you have to.
I deserve to be here as much as everyone else, and well, you know, certainly in Superdrug, but also if you know, as a bisexual woman, you know, you're technically, although you know it's all a charade, just as much welcome at LGB Alliance as any other bisexual woman there.
Well, that's a good. I mean, obviously, I keep saying this. I keep making this point about the fact that I'm bisexual, not because I mean I am, but I don't make it. You know, the reason I'm saying it is because I feel like it kind of shows the ridiculousness of them as an organization in terms of what they believe. Because, you know, firstly, they're telling me that I shouldn't be there, but at the same time, there are lots of people there that don't, as far as I'm aware, fit into the LGB spectrum. You know, Graham Linehan was there, for example. I don't know how he identifies these days, but I don't remember. Yeah, it's probably. But the truth is, I am bisexual, regardless of what you think about my biological sex. I consider myself bisexual. It's more of like an outward thing than an inward thing. It's, you know, I am bisexual. I am attracted to both lots of genders. I guess you could call that polyamorous, but I am bisexual. Not polyamorous. What's it called? Pansexual. Whatever. I don't say it. Pansexual.
Might
no
be
offense.
poly too. Who knows?
I'm not. I couldn't deal with that. I don't have the patience for that. But I don't mean for other people. I mean for me. I can't micromanage.
I understand.
Yeah, just covering all my bases. But anyway, so the point is, if I'm bisexual, I fit into that category. Even if I'm not, I mean, it's really basic for me. It's, you know, it's a ticketed public event. They were making a big deal about the fact that, you know, allies are welcome. This is you know, people are, you know, they want people there because they want to be a mainstream public-facing charity.
They're making a very strong point. We are not anti-trans. I know that recently, they recently tweeted a Pink News article which said anti-trans LGB Alliance, and they're like, we agree with this, but, you know, at least for some of their existence, they've tried to say we're not anti-trans, we're just pro-lesbian, gay and bisexual. And obviously that, however you look at it, that includes some trans people. And now, I guess one question I would have for them is, if I have a boyfriend who is like a straight cis man, are we then welcome in their spaces? Are they fighting for me, like, and us, and our like eventually straight marriage? Because, you know, I technically then count as a gay male to them, even though obviously.
Well, this is the intrinsic problem with them, is that they're all like they're all hardcore biological essentialists, and I had conversations with some of them about this, again, which I have on recording, just in case people forgot, about biological essentialism, and about how, you know, like just trying to even get to the bottom of like, do they even acknowledge that gender exists, or that there is a social implication to people's existence, you know, like not like that society doesn't run on like rigid like binaries like that. I mean, it does, but it also, there's a lot of nuance, you know, like they're basically, they're not thinking about how the world is. They're thinking about kind of like
how they want it to be.
Yeah. So their solutions, well, firstly don't have any solutions. This is the other thing that I was trying to ascertain from them. I kept asking them, I kept saying this question, you know, in your ideal utopian society, imagine in 20 years, I'm still alive, I still exist. What are you going to do with me? Where do I fit in? How is my life going to be? And they don't have an answer for you. you know, because they know that really what they're going to say is like essentially what it must have to lead to is forced detransition. I think that's kind of like what they kind of want, right? So
some of them, I think that
I've looked them in the eyes, Katie. I've seen them.
I think that it is worth highlighting this kind of LGB Alliance, like the core ideology behind it, and what I think is just an obvious contradiction. And even if you were to good faith their position and like try and sort of steelman it and say what they're trying to say is that according to some people, sexuality should be described purely in terms of like how people identify themselves. And they might say, this person here is saying that they're a woman and I'm only attracted to women and I'm not attracted to this person because to me, they look like a man. And they might say, and the whole world is changing and I don't like it because I want to be able to describe how, like, okay, let's just accept that as a position. If you then say, but we only define sexuality based on someone's birth sex, you're then in this position, which I just mentioned, where you're trying to claim that, like, not just people like me, I don't try and use myself as an example to like, or either of us to like boast or make a point or anything. There are trans women and men who like pass naked significantly better than me, like out there. And we're trying to, you know, the LGB Alliance ideology, they often focus about this trans women and lesbians things because it's the thing that can get like straight cis guys the most wound up. Mm-hmm. But we're also, if we just evenly apply this ideology across all sexualities and all different positions, we're saying with this LGBT Alliance ideology that gay men are attracted to passing trans women with like breasts and vaginas and all these things, and straight men aren't. That's part of the ideological claim. And I think that to anyone who isn't invested in the gender critical worldview, that is plainly nonsense.
Yeah, and the truth is actually... Oh, sorry, Katie, go on.
No, that's okay. And I just think that, you know, we can often get caught up in this like debate about lesbians, and that's kind of what they want. But like there's all these other implications from this ideology, and it just trivially doesn't make sense. For sure, there's grey areas. There's a whole, you know, trans people break binaries in every single sense, because the day I came out, the first time that I came out to myself, like all the people in the world who are attracted to women wouldn't have been attracted to me. But today, all the people in the world who are just attracted to men, none of them are going to be attracted to me, at least in my 100%. Experience. Maybe some of the audience are, but like, who knows? And it's just a nonsense position, and they want this like everything works on birth sex, and there's just binaries, and there's just three sexualities or four sexualities. You're attracted to birth sex males, you're attracted to birth sex females, both or neither, and that just does not make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't.
And I just think that's like the whole thing. That's LGB Alliance summed up and not over.
Well, the thing is, I mean, that's really interesting what you just said, and it makes sense because I think what it goes to show though is it goes to show actually, despite the fact that they've been very careful about their branding, calling themselves LGB Alliance and trying to like position a group of gay people and lesbian people, not many bisexual people, involved in the institution to try and give it legitimacy. I think it's very telling of how much they actually know about gay culture and how much they understand about just the gay scene in general, how simplistic their worldview is, because actually what they're doing is they're delegitimizing a lot of people's perceptions of themselves. And I'm not even talking about trans people, I'm talking about people who identify as gay, lesbian, and bisexual, by creating this line in the sand. So like if like I know women, like cis women who identify as lesbian, who have dated or are dating trans women, if you say, you know, if you have to agree with this point, you're delegitimizing them and their identity. You're basically calling them a liar. You're saying to them that, you know, regardless of the fact that you're attracted to a particular type of person, it's like, well, I mean, what are they saying? Like, you're lying, or you aren't what you think you are. And it just goes to show that a big part of gay identity and a big part of gay culture is not strictly sexual. It's not strictly biological. It is cultural. It's societal. It's I think at the core of it, if you go down this avenue enough, you're going to get to the point where you have to just admit that everything is sort of on a sliding scale, and that's not something they're willing to do because they themselves are very attached to their own gay identity and the way that they perceive it.
I think it's okay. So I guess the reason we get a reaction about this from cis gay people is completely understandable. Like, the reason there's reactions on both sides and all over the place, because gay people have been oppressed for their sexuality for thousands of years. They are still today in like most of the world, and it totally makes sense when you are an oppressed minority that you don't just oppose irrational oppression and like irrational prejudice. You end up organizing, and you end up creating culture, and you end up creating identities, and these identities are very important to people. And like, I think that's very understandable, and I think that's what we see both sides here of both sides. Even the LGB Alliance position is about identity and the culture as much as it is anything else. And it's just that the way they've imagined how the world works doesn't actually match up with how the world works. And for sure, maybe they're seeing another position in their minds of other people saying the way the world works, and they don't think it matches up. But what we can say is the world works in a certain way, and we know for sure your birth sex is the only thing that sexuality depends on. That's just false. So that doesn't mean, therefore, there are no rules. That doesn't mean I'm saying we have to get rid of gay culture. That doesn't mean I'm saying you have to be attracted to people that you're not attracted to. I want to preserve all of this stuff because that's the world, and I care strongly, very strongly about gay rights. But what I'm just saying is that this little worldview you've created just doesn't work for all people. And it works for most people, but trans people are very rare, but there's enough of us that you just need to update your worldview. And I can see why some gay people get nervous when trans people are like, oh, well, your culture's all wrong, and you're saying you're not attracted to people and you should be. Like, that can come across a bit like,
of course,
when that's not the intention in 99% of the cases. It's trans people saying, hey, all this, how you think the world works. In my experience, that doesn't really match up because, I'm a bit different to everyone else here. And maybe we could just update the worldview. And then, I think in my experience, most cis gay people are like, oh yeah, okay, makes sense. Whatever. And some people are uncomfortable about it. And
that's
some people
problem,
are
isn't it?
confrontationally transphobic and call people AGB pedophile nonces or whatever.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like the LGB Alliance, they literally define themselves on exclusion. Their name is a play on LGBT. It's literally exists just to exclude a specific
it does.
letter.
They can pretend otherwise, but no, come on.
Yeah.
We all know it. They know it, we know it. They know we know it, we know they know we know it. Like
what you were just saying about this. So this is a criticism that gets leveled at trans people quite a lot, which is this idea of like, for example, a gay man saying, what, are you going to force me? Are you going to force me to go out with or have sex with a trans man? Is that really what? And vice versa as well. The truth is, although there may very well be like a minority of people online like making an extreme claim like that, the actual truth of it is like, I don't know anybody, I've never spoken to anybody who holds that position in real life. No. And I very much feel like that is like a non-argument because I just have not, for me personally, not experienced it. That being said, I guess the only point I was trying to make with that is I think it's very sad that somebody would perhaps maybe identify as, let's say, a lesbian, and then see a trans woman, not know they're a trans woman, be attracted to that person, but then deny themselves that because it conflicts with their perception of their own identity. That's all I would say.
Yeah, so that is sad, and also as sad as a position where maybe she is attracted to this trans woman and then says, oh, I found this person attractive, and someone's like, that's a trans woman, that means you're bisexual. That means you are not a lesbian because you were attracted to this person. And I think this thing of going around telling people what their sexuality is, that's the issue here. And if there is a trans person who goes around and say, you have to be attracted to this, you see these anonymous montages they make, but it's like I spend way too much time on the internet, and it's so rare to actually encounter. And when you look up lots of them, they're either fake profiles or they don't exist, or the context is completely removed or whatever. But I'm sure it has happened before. I have actually encountered it one time and called it out. But this kind of telling you what your sexuality is and what you should like, absolutely is coming from the gender critical people as much, in my opinion, a lot more, where they're saying, no, you can't be a lesbian because one time you fancied a trans woman. As if anyone could know for sure they haven't fancied a trans person in the past. You might have had sex with a trans person in the past without knowing. And that doesn't mean that you're suddenly no longer the sexuality that you describe yourself as, because obviously that person was part of your sexuality in the first place. And this is just a nonsense thing about labels and birth sexes. And that's not a sensible way of describing it. The reason we need to describe these things is because of the irrational prejudice that people face. If in a world with no homophobia, no prejudice about sexuality at all, it wouldn't be important. But it is important because of this. And if you're a trans woman and you're holding hands with your wife and you're walking down the street and someone shouts a load of slurs for lesbians at you and you put in a position where you're threatened and you say, I just experienced homophobia and it was terrifying. And then some people turn up and say, actually, your chromosomes are XY, so that wasn't homophobia. And you're not gay, and your partner's not gay, and this is just a straight it's just disgusting. Just don't do it.
It's wild, isn't it? It's wild. I think for me, it just goes to show that, like, one of the things that gets leveled at us quite a lot is like, you're just like identity politics. You just care about so much about like your pronouns or your state or whatever. And it's like, well, the truth is, it's like these people are so obsessed with their identity and what they perceive it to be. Like so when I date some, like, yeah, I'm bisexual, but like, so for example, if I'm dating a man, most men that I've met identify on their profile, whatever, as a straight man. Like that's sort of like a thing that so few gender critical people have been able to kind of like square that circle, And the truth is, like, when we start going out, we're not having debates about what he is. We're not trying to get that on paper. Like, what are you? Are you gay? Are you not?
Yeah.
It's mate. I don't know. Do you know what, Katie? Maybe we're just ahead of our time. We're just very enlightened thinkers.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I know we've done like quite a big rant here about like the theory and all this kind of stuff, but there's a few more things I want to get onto from your trip before we call this a day. And one is your lovely photo collection. So
I do have a photo collection.
So we've just got a couple of photos here, and this was part of the reason why we're late setting up, which is definitely why I want to cover it. So I'm just gonna see. Hopefully, you guys will be able to see these pictures quite well. I'm actually using WhatsApp because the tech issues, basically. But anyway, here is a photo of the lovely Jen and someone in a circle there. So do you want to explain this little situation?
Well, I don't know if you can see, but like when you see like a ghost video and they put like a red circle around to show you where the ghost is. I don't know if you can notice, but I've very carefully put a red circle. You have to just kind of squint to see it. But that is Graham Linehan there. I think I don't want to be liable. I don't want libel here, but I think he's eating something. It might be a chocolate pudding. It might be a sandwich. But whatever he's eating, he's having a great time. He's having a good time there. He did. I think he did see us taking the photo, but that's okay because later on, I literally introduced myself to him and shook his hand anyway. So.
Right. So when I listen to the recordings and you go up and you're like, oh, I'm a big fan. You wrote one of my favorite shows, and it's kind of weird because obviously I've heard his voice a lot before from various things, but to just have this like conversational and then like hear him and it's instantly like, oh, that is definitely Graham Linehan. He accuse you of being a TRA something?
It's very interesting to me. It's very interesting to me how quick these people are to call you a TRA. I mean, I don't personally identify as an activist, like in the sense of like you
do have activist chromosomes, so you're.
I do. I mean, I think what I did the other day, going to the conference, gives me some clout, but I'm not. But I it's not my career. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't do that. But I guess what I find funny about that is like the point I was trying to make with him is like I'm there. Just like anyone else is there. I'm not making a scene. I wasn't protesting. I wasn't, shouting unprovoked. So to go up to somebody very civilly and go, hello, Graham, big fan, how are you? To then get the response of, oh, another trans rights activist, is a very weird, presumptuous thing to straight go to. And he did shake my hand, and we had a little back and forth about whether he was enjoying the conference. But
I think this is one to any gender critical people watching who, are considering our arguments, maybe not necessarily disagreeing with them. One of the things I would say is this kind of, I'm not transphobic, I just don't like the activists. Like, let's just say that's a position. If you label every single trans person as an activist, that allows you to dislike trans people in your mind without being transphobic because you dislike the activists. It's just 99% of trans people are activists. This just makes sense that a random trans person, not clued up on the turf wars at all, they just transition, the doctor helps them out, their friends accept them, whatever. They're going to think, well, I should be allowed to go to the toilet, and they're going to think I should be allowed healthcare, because there are normal things that people think. There's no ideology behind that. And if you go up to them and you say, you shouldn't be allowed healthcare, you shouldn't be allowed to go to the toilet, and they're like, oh, excuse me? And if you then call them an activist for that, like, that's ridiculous. And that's this position we end up in where the only trans people you're not calling trans rights activists are the 10 or so who are openly gender critical. Then all you're really doing, don't fool yourselves.
Yeah.
You just dislike trans people. It's okay if you particularly hate me, and maybe if you particularly hate Jen, but 99% of other trans people who you actually talk to on Twitter and you actually have real conversations with them, that's fine. You can hate me. I don't mind. But if you start labeling every single one, then that's when you need to start asking yourself a question. Anyway,
I think it's a really, really great point. I think it's definitely something I've noticed. It's like, it's not a new idea, but it's true. It's that, as a trans person, you can't really exist without being an activist. Like, you have to have a certain level of self-preservation. You have to be able to look after yourself, and you have to fight for what you believe in. The problem, these people, these gender critical people, one thing they love to do is they love to make your identity or your status conditional. So for example, if you're a trans woman or whatever, if you do something illegal or you do something in disrepute or whatever, then the media or these people, they're very quick to kind of say, look, you're not, you're being deceptive, you're not a trans woman anymore. This, they kind of take away your identity. It's the same thing with this. It's kind of like, you're basically a good one, a normal trans person, until you do anything out of step with what they feel is right, and then you're automatically a trans rights activist. It's absurd. It's basically it's coded language. It's like a TRA is just a fluffy way of saying she was dumb, basically. It's just ridiculous.
Anyway, let's move on to the next photo, because I could rant about all these things for days. Is this a little zoom in? If he's definitely enjoying that. Look
at his cheeky little cheeks. Look at him, like a little hamster.
So here you are. So there was a protest outside, is that right?
Yeah, I don't want to give off the wrong impression that this was the size of the protest. This was their protest started at 3:00. This was actually about 2:00 when I first came outside. They told me that if I went behind the barriers to the protest side, I would have to be checked again and stuff when I went in. So I just went over there and spoke to them.
What did the trans protesters think of you coming out of the conference with your little lanyard on? Did they think you were a Debbie Hayton, or?
I don't think they did, because I think I had been tweeting from inside. It's coming from inside the house. I've been tweeting a little bit. I posted a picture of myself at the in the conference area, and some of them, when I walked over, they said we've been following it. A lot of them, I don't expect these people to know who I am.
Don't you know who I am?
Exactly. If I'd have been on their side and I'd have been walking towards them with my LGB Alliance lanyard, I would have had my back up a little bit. But they're all really nice, and I joined them later. and had a little chat with a nice lady from What the Trans. So
Okay, yeah. So is it right that you're on a podcast with What the Trans, or you're going to be, or?
I believe so. Yeah, she had a like dictaphone. I like recorded a little thing with her, and
well,
that'll
What
come
the
out
Trans
whenever.
is a great podcast anyway. So I recommend, if anyone doesn't know What the Trans, then it's definitely worth checking out. And maybe you could hear more from Jen, and also maybe some other cool, even cooler people, obviously. So
yeah. What do you mean,
so,
cooler people?
So we've done that one. So this is. So I saw this picture on Twitter when you said, "I'm in the conference." Like, is this you watching the first one, or?
Yeah, this is us sitting in the conference center for the first one. This was like us first getting there. We've still got our stickers on that says "I support the LGB Alliance" or whatever. I stand with. They love standing with stuff, don't they? They love a stand. We took those stickers. I had that sticker on for about 15 minutes, and then I just felt really dirty. I was like, okay, I can be here. I can.
Do you still have the sticker?
I have. I don't have it in front of me, but I've got it stuck on the book that I've got. I've still got the sticker. Yeah. We took off the sticker, but then the LGB Alliance themselves retweeted this photo with like a little like a little smarmy face. I think that's what that emoji is. Kind of saying
face, I think.
Yeah. And they said something like, look, like there are all kinds of people here, kind of thing. As it like kind of having their cake and eating it, because on the one hand, they were kind of clearly trying to instigate a pile onto me. But on the second thing, they were also kind of trying to say like, look, there's a trans person here. And until Debbie Hayton turned up, actually, which was like after I left, it was like way later. Like not to throw any shade at Debbie Hayton, but but
she's not as committed as you.
Yeah, she only turned up for the disco. Like we know what her interests are.
Is it?
Anyway, so I was there from
knocking
the morning.
A microphone or something.
Sorry, I was there from the morning. And so that's me, and that is my good friend David Riggs. He goes by, he's a comedian as well, okay. And he is not trans. He is. Don't want to out him or anything, but he's a cis white male.
Cis person.
Yes, but
he's so deceptive.
I know, but he too is bisexual, so he had perfectly every right to be there also. So, and just for the record, because this was an accusation leveled at him as well. Another assumption. We are not fucking. Although that was that again that not yet, but that was leveled at us as well. So weirdly.
Well. It'd be interesting because I know that there's this kind of thing, and I think this is an attitude that any LGB person who's gender critical should be disgusted at, that I see from gender critical people all the time, and I've seen from Gren Linehan many times, this idea of a bisexual woman in a relationship with a bisexual man. They're both suddenly straight. And I guess I'm not, I can't guess what was going on, but I've definitely seen it before where it's like, oh, here's a bisexual woman, and then she has a boyfriend, so suddenly she's delegitimized and we can ignore her view because she's not a real like lesbian, gay, or bisexual person. And usually women, but like if that was leveled at you in this position, but then also with the other gender critical premise that you were actually a man, then that would make you a gay couple.
Look. Let's call the whole thing off. Like at the end of the day, I think what it comes down to is, as trans people, right? I'm sick of this notion that we're like really snowflakey or whatever, because we go through a lot, and if there's one thing that you have, I feel like people should have to admit about trans people in particular, we make a big deal about we go to a lot of effort to change our lives in a positive way. We shift, we make adjustments in order to be happy. Yeah. And one of those things is that we also tend to, by and large, open up our scope of how we view ourselves on a sexual basis. Sexy time, exactly. So the thing is like people make a lot of assumptions about us, and people can, like, I do identify as bisexual, and at the moment I do predominantly date guys. That doesn't mean anything. Like I dated a woman for 8 years. Like people
LGB.
do, but now I date men. But this is the thing is but I also am open to dating women. So this is the thing. People have these assumptions, and they expect, it's almost like if you're bisexual, they expect you to like go one on, one off, you know, like, oh, you can date them for a year and then go, but the other, and this,
just have a sex with a man, then a woman, then a man every other weekend.
Yeah, it's absurd. It's not how life works, you know.
And I think, I mean, I don't think this is an unreasonable assumption. I would assume that most bisexual people on Earth are in straight relationships, or those who are in relationships, because it's a lot easier to be in a relationship with a person, you know, of the opposite sex, because in a lot of places there's a lot of homophobia.
Of course, it's the default.
It doesn't stop them from being bisexual, and it also doesn't stop them from being oppressed for it. And it's complicated, and we won't get into that now. Maybe if someone wants to get into that, they can call into the Transatlantic call-in show later on, 11 p.m. UK time. Anyway, let's move on to so we've got one more photo, which is this unlikely character. So who's this?
Funny guy, James Dreyfus, right? Star of Gimme Gimme Gimme. Is that what? I'm not sure if that's a bottle of Yazoo in his pocket. I can't actually quite tell. I only just noticed it. I can't say that with any certainty, but it looks like a chocolate Yazoo to
allegedly.
Allegedly.
I know James is like a little bit keen on, you know, legal goings on. So please.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want to. But that is him. I'm pretty sure that's him. Yeah. I was. This is when I was sitting around after the confrontation, kind of like stewing and being like, I'm not going anywhere. And these people, and then I call this chapter like, this is me, like the spectre of the feast, because this is like before I was there, before I was out, I suppose, at the conference, everyone was treating me really nicely. And now everyone was treating me really passive aggressively and kind of walking past me and kind of like looking at me and then going away or smirking or taking photos of me. And, some people trying to engage in conversation with me, but in really patronizing ways where they still like insisted on misgendering me and like basically kind of trying to be nice, but while simultaneously always also being like a massive prick.
Yeah.
It's that kind of like weird thing where you don't know where you stand. And anyway, he was milling around and Graham Linehan was also milling around, and they were all kind of shaking hands and fucking, you know.
They all meet up every single week at a different protest around the country, though, don't they? So...
metaphorically sucking each other off, not literally.
Anyway.
Oh my God, it's so nice to see you. Oh my God, I'm a big fan. All that kind of stuff. You can see why they like it there. It's like, you know, it's like, oh my God, it's
an ego boost,
the center of attention. Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, there's a lot of projection goes on from gender critical accusations onto trans people. One of which being that we go around telling people what they have to be attracted to whilst they do that. And another one is, my goodness, do they like to call us narcissistic and self-centered, and fucking hell are some of them, lots of them, unbelievably
they're also on, well, particularly on Twitter anyway, they're also the quickest people to like call me ugly and criticize my appearance. So it's like, if you're going to accuse us of being like vain or narcissistic or worried about the way we look, maybe stop holding us to those standards. Yeah.
So we got a little 11-second video here of you eating yogurt, or
it's a very nice, like, so the point of this is a very, very nice like chocolate pudding. As you can see, Graham Linehan is in the background there. Oh no!
Quick, back to Dreyfus.
Maybe that's why I got the obese I got. I was making a spectacle of myself.
Too sexy.
But, I know, too sexy to be there. But basically, I should say, just to be clear, that the food that I did eat, the chocolate pudding, I didn't have a sandwich. I didn't have my lunch even. I paid for it. At a certain point, I felt unsafe to eat it. So maybe they put rat poison in it. And I'm just joking. But the chocolate pudding was ridiculously nice. It was like definitely the highlight of the day. Like, it was so good. It had little bits of like brownie in it. It had like one of those little like chocolate straws in it. And I think I've got this recorded. I made an effort to go up to the staff who were catering the event, because they were all very nice, very good, try to find out who made the chocolate pudding, and I at least passed on my thing to say it was lovely, please tell them how good it was, because as nicest Graham Linehan loved it. Yeah, exactly. No, but that's what I'm saying is like, I don't think the catering staff helped the shed the positions of the LGB Alliance. There were actually there were a lot of people there like the staff and stuff who seemed not to have any idea about what was going on. And sort of like in my experience through phoning like the Queen Elizabeth II Centre before I spoke to Rob or whatever his name is, before speaking to him, like I spoke to a lot of the staff at the actual centre, and so many of them didn't know what the LGB Alliance was. They didn't seem to understand the politics of what was going on. Like I spoke to a woman in the cafe, she didn't know. There were other people on the desk that weren't aware that they knew that they were sitting with a member of the, like these people with LGB Alliance t-shirts on, but Joe Public doesn't generally know what it is. The security didn't know what was going on. That's 100% sure. I'm 100% sure of that. So it's just interesting to me, you know, it's like, I think these kind of buildings and stuff, they need to think about what kind of events they're hosting. I mean, like, what's going to be next? You know?
I think, it's worth pointing out. So talking of which, I'm going to do a double quick segue here. I think Tunnocks is the company. They gave out free chocolates or something.
I'm heartbroken.
And they've said that they didn't know what LGB Alliance was. From my understanding, I don't know if they made that public.
A picture of a Tunnocks tea cake. Like
sorry, just before. So I just want to get this other thing in. Very kindly in Super Chat, someone called Joe has donated $4.49 for you to have a Yazoo. So I'll make sure that money gets to you so you can have a Yazoo.
And
then also, talking of the brochure,
yes.
I noticed. So they had all of the different speakers and like celebrities who were there. And they had their like Twitter handles underneath, a little bit like below us here, if you would like to follow us. But they had Graham Linehan's Twitter handle there, which is
weird,
interesting because he doesn't have a Twitter because, you know, he's suspended for harassing people. But I typed in what they had put there, which was Glinner but with a J instead of an I. And it's like a parody account of him. And it's in their official brochure.
I know, it's a joke. They don't know what they're doing.
But saying that, they had spent a lot of money on this. They had the big, huge banners. They had like a very, I mean, nonsense, but like professional looking booklet. They'd obviously paid lots of speakers. They obviously had lots of media and stuff. I feel like the intent is to show off to politicians and people who are important. We're a legit group rather than necessarily to do some kind of grassroots organizing. And I think they're very much trying to position themselves as a political group, you know, a political lobby group. And as part of the like general anti-LGBT attack on Stonewall, I mean, you know, the Conservatives want to replace all of the kind of like pro-human rights charities with like fake groups which aren't pro-human rights, and I think LGB Alliance fit the bill perfectly for that.
100%, and we know that Boris Johnson just spoke out in support of them, didn't he?
No, he actually didn't.
Did he not? Tell me.
Well, unless he has recently spoke out and actually said something, but they invited him, and his secretary sent a letter back saying, "We love the work you do. Thank you very much for doing it."
Oh, right. It was like a general thing.
But it's the same letter that like another a lady who I think I've seen in the comments was posting that another charity had got the same letter. So it
does make sense because they've got charity status. So
it's just like, oh, thanks for being a charity. So obviously but maybe in the last 24 hours, Boris Johnson himself has spoken out. I know I wouldn't trust the Times' spin on it, and also I saw Pink News clickbaiting this. But if you go and look at the letter and read it, and then read the other letter that another charity has received, and it's like the same. Because it doesn't mention LGB Alliance. It's just thank you very much for your hard work. So, and then, you know, from the Prime Minister, but then not signed by him, just signed by the Secretary.
Right, okay. Well, I got my information from reliable source Robert Jessel. He did he did. He did like a tweet. He did a tweet at me saying basically like we have the support of the Prime Minister or whatever. So
yeah, that made me laugh.
Here it is.
So we've had an hour discussion about this. Is before you like we call it a day. Is there any other like little events that happened? Any other like feedback on the conference or what you felt you might want to share or?
Yeah, well, there was one other thing that happened. So I unfortunately didn't get any of this recorded on video, but not on video, on audio. But you know, if the Queen Elizabeth II Centre has CCTV, you'll be able to see it playing out, and there were definitely witnesses. So you just have to take my word on this one. Basically, because I went to the toilet twice. And no
I
one
need to
said a
know
word.
how many times you go to the toilet every day.
Well, I had to check my wire, to make sure it's got everything recorded. Anyway, went to the toilet
Sorry,
twice.
careful knocking the microphone.
Sorry. Went to the toilet twice, and then the third time I didn't get to go because of the incident happened. Anyway, when I went downstairs into the lobby, which obviously isn't the LGB Alliance floor, like it was on the third floor, that wasn't their space, it was just the general lobby of the building. I thought, okay, I'm gonna play their game then, I'm gonna like do as I'm told kind of thing. And so I went over to the security in the desk and I said, excuse me, like, do you have any intersex toilets, like non-gender
Unisex.
toilets? Yeah, unisex. Yeah. What did I say? Intersex.
Yeah.
One day. I said, yeah, can I use the unisex toilets? And they basically said, they were like, they didn't say they don't have any, but there was, despite what they kept saying, there was no clear signposting. Like when you go over to the toilet area, it's literally just like men, women, disabled toilet. Yeah. So I said, okay, well, I'm happy to use the disabled toilet. But I was like, I don't know where it is. And so I was waiting for someone to show me. And they kept saying, oh, we'll get someone to take you there. Like, you just have to wait. So I was like waiting for must have been like 20 to 30 minutes. And then I was like, oh, forget this. So I just went over to use the men's toilets because that's what people have been telling me to do all day. So I went in the men's toilets. And as soon as I went in the men's toilets, the security called me and said, no, you can't go in the men's toilets. And I said, I don't know what to do. I've been told by upstairs to use the men's toilets. Downstairs, you're now telling me to use the women's toilets. They don't want me in there. You don't want me in there. Where do I go? And then the people from LGB Alliance kept saying, use the unisex toilets, use the unisex toilets. And I was like, but I don't know where they are. You said someone was going to come and show me to them. By this time, like, I should have just pissed myself because like it was, I needed to go, but also like it was like literally half an hour later. And eventually they took me to the disabled toilets and let me use them. But but even then I don't feel comfortable doing that because I don't have a disability.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think this, why can't trans people just use the disabled toilets is just garbage. I mean, it's garbage for a lot of reasons. It's garbage because it's forced segregation on something that we've done literally for your entire life without an issue. Like, why should we change what we're doing just because you've made up some bullshit to fearmonger about? But also because disabled people, like, often need to use the toilet. And there's often, like, I mean, even in these big conference centres, which might have 100 toilets, they might still only have one per floor, or maybe even just one disabled toilet. And if you need that, I've talked to disabled people before who have like a condition, which means sometimes they need the toilet like now. And if there's some, abled person in there that's using up the toilet that they need, and it could make things worse for someone who does need it. And I'm not saying, I'm not in the place. I'm not disabled. I'm not the kind of person who can say, trans people should never use the disabled toilets unless they're disabled. I don't know all of the situation here, and I'd greatly appreciate it if any disabled person who does know about this wanted to discuss it with me. But I don't think that this kind of attitude from gender critical people of, well, you should just use the disabled, I think that is wrong.
I do too, and it's a logistical issue.
It's treating, and also, like, if you are in a situation where you believe that trans people are a threat to women, are they not a threat to disabled women? Exactly. Like, it doesn't make any sense. What you're saying is these people aren't normal, get them out of. Ugh.
It's the other. It's like a disabled toilet is other toilet, not just for us, but for disabled. Like I used to work in, I'm not disabled as I said, but I used to work in learning disabilities care. I did it for 5 years. I work with disabled people. I know a lot of disabled people. Another just logistical issue with that claim as well is just the fact that firstly, there aren't that many disabled toilets either. Secondly, disabled access is terrible generally. Like it's a big thing that we need to get past because, a lot of institutions don't even have to, seems like they don't even have to accommodate that. The other thing is unisex toilets aren't as common as people claim they are. The standard is still very much men and women, like segregated toilets. That's still very normal, despite what people say. And thirdly, in a lot of situations, if I was in a situation where I felt like I had to use a disabled toilet because there was no other option for me, a lot of disabled toilets require a thing called a radar key, which you can either own or you can go and ask the people to get. But it's a lot of faff. It takes a long time. So, you know, a lot of people can't necessarily hold for that long, you know, and it's like that's why some people own a radar key and some people don't. And like it's just again, it just comes back to the fact, like, to me, like, we can debate these things and everything, but it's wrong. It's wrong. Like, it's just very simple to me, you know. It's like it's a logistical nightmare, really. And it just really proved to me that, like, these people, the LGB Alliance, not only are they not equipped to run a relatively small conference, they're certainly not equipped to have any kind of control in society, or like they've got no ideas. They don't know what they're doing.
This and this, I think, is another issue with gender critical as a whole, is that it's a reaction, and that means that it doesn't have solid proposals. What are the actual practical proposals for a world where you've changed the law, you've changed what we've had for your entire life, and you've banned trans people from the toilet? How are you enforcing that? There was claims of toilet guards. Obviously, there isn't toilet guards. If there was toilet guards, you would have just walked through and they would have let you through anyway, you know, until you outed yourself. And then when you did, would they really want you in the men's toilets? As you see, the security didn't like that because, obviously...
because they weren't up to date.
What's the practical proposal? What do you actually want? And I ask this a lot and I never get answers. And I think that the important thing is it's so much easier to say, oh, what about trans people? We need to oppose them. And that gets people on board, because that's much easier than saying, I have a proposal to replace what we have today. And the reason it's much easier to do that is because all of the alternatives are worse than what we have today. Like
100%.
All of the alternatives. And that's why they don't propose them. Because if you said, do you know what we should do? We should hire toilet guards. Garbage. Do you know what it said? You know what we should do? Every single venue should be required to provide third spaces. That's good. I mean, I'll be up for that. That's very expensive. That's a very, like, big mandate that would take decades to implement. And then I would just still use the women's anyway, obviously.
Exactly, because that's the thing. It's like they can do it. I would be fine with them doing it, hypothetically. But as you said, it would take a really long time. And just from a purely like hypothetical situation, like, even if they did do that, exactly what you just said, I still don't feel like I should have to. You know, that's the point. It's like...
And most trans people wouldn't even know. Like,
exactly.
Like, when, you know, lots of trans people are involved in all the media wars bullshit, but lots of them aren't. And I talk to trans people and, you know, I like them out and about and I say, oh, you know, this is happening. And they're like, what? What, really?
That's wild to me, though. That's wild to me, because, like, I mean, I get that from, like, cis people, but I understand that. I mean, there's loads of issues that from, you know, other minorities and other people that I'm not massively up to date on, and I would like to be, but so I understand that we can't always know everything that's going on with everyone. But I feel like if it directly affects you in this way, I think you should probably, like, find out what's going on, because, like, shit is going on at the moment. And, you know, that's kind of why I went, because, you know, stuff is going on, you know, and we need to be aware of it and we need to be safe. You know, you don't have to do exactly what I did. That's not what I'm saying. I want to
do not try this at home, kids.
Yeah, well, that's what I do think that's important to say. Like, I'm not advocating that people do what I did, but I do think you owe it to yourself to be involved somehow. I think you should, like, learn about these institutions and these groups, because, you know, they know what we're up to.
Do they? Because whenever I ask, what do you actually think I want? They tell me a load of stuff that I don't want. But
oh no, I guess I didn't mean like they don't know exactly what we're up to. But what I mean is that they at least they know what they think of us, basically. Yeah. So we just need to be aware and just need to be vigilant.
I do like the idea that there are trans people out there who are living their lives without having to be an expert on biology, UK law, you know, all this kind of stuff that you always have to be an expert on. Like, to be a trans person online, you have to be an expert in UFC because some bellend is going to ask you about whether you should have rights because what about this UFC fight? And you're like, God, I don't fucking care.
I like it in principle, but I like it as like
It's
something
the first
that we
generation
can
ever.
aspire to. But I don't think I don't know. I think someone's, you need, I don't know. You're right.
No,
You're right. You're right.
I hear you. I think it's good to be informed, but
Yeah, be
it's
informed.
good to live your life. But yeah. So
is it though?
Well, it's good to live my life. You make your life wank, but
yeah, that's why I went. I mean, a lot of people have been asking me like, "Are you crazy? You're a nihilist and stuff." I guess yeah, it's fine. Got nothing better to do at the moment.
They're saying that me and Jen were up till like 6 a.m. last night drinking, so
yeah,
that was a good time.
Nice.
But yeah, so I think we've probably come to the end of our discussion and interview here. If you would like to hear more from, Jen's adventure into the world of LGB Alliance, it's worth checking out What the Trans, and I think maybe Pink News might be doing a thing on it.
It might be.
And also, I presume it's going to be coming up in your future comedy shows. So perhaps
probably
people should check those out. And, when you're a big touring comedian celebrity and you've got your own Netflix special and you can be like, prejudice against poly people or something. And do a Dave Chappelle, then we can all think back to this glorious moment.
I probably won't go with Netflix. I'll probably go with like, what's that one that does all the short form stuff?
Don't know.
Oh, it doesn't matter anyway. I'll go with Amazon. They haven't done anything wrong, have they?
So Amazon, hear that? You maybe why don't you pay for Jen to do a comedy special on your network?
Jeff Bezos is okay, isn't he?
He's a billionaire, so therefore scum. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone in the audience, for watching. Appreciate everyone being here. I have seen that there's been a lot of discussion going on in the chat. Thank you, mods, for keeping on top of it. I hope that there was some respectful discussions. I know that some gender critical people here. If you're gender critical and you watched and you were disagreeing the whole way through and you've made it to the end, thanks for just listening. If you're a trans person and you're feeling stressed by LGB Alliance, I hope that, this has taken the mask off a little bit. Just it's going to be all right long term.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
It is. But, it was like, rest assured, it was pathetic. Like the conference was pathetic. Like it was lame. You don't have to worry.
There was some infighting. Maybe I'll get into that. Hopefully, Turf Wars will be back soon. Maybe we can go into the infighting that went on. And for anyone else who isn't sick of me, you can come tune in at 11 p.m. UK time today to see me and the lovely Arden for the Transatlantic Call-In Show. And any gender critical people still here, if you want to discuss everything that I've said today, anything I've said today, or anything Jen said or whatever, you can call in and talk to me. And it's live. I can't edit it. Whatever you say is what you say. And you're free to bring your point. You can even, you can bring any gender critical views. Just don't be a bell end and we'll hear from you. But anyway, thank you very much, Jen. I really appreciate you doing this short notice interview. We've both only had like 3 hours sleep. I hope everyone's enjoyed it. And maybe we'll see you again soon on this channel in the future.
Yeah, that would be nice. And can I just plug my website?
Oh yeah, plug away.
Yeah, so if you want to check me out, my website's jenives.net. My Twitter is @JenIvesComedian. And I'm also on Ko-fi, Jen Ives Comedian.
I will put all of these links in the description below.
Yeah, so yeah,
click
I'm
on all
Patreon
of them
as well. But
send her loads of money.
Give me loads of money.
And loads of she needs to buy Yazoos, and she wants a lifetime sponsorship from Yazoos. So
no, just give me attention. That's all. That's all I can. Just watch my videos and stuff. Subscribe to me on YouTube. That's what I need. Okay, here's what I need on YouTube. Okay, this is pathetic that I'm asking for this. Okay, but I'm doing all right on Twitter, but I need 500 subscribers so I can change my username, so I can have like a channel name.
Go subscribe.
They won't let me have a channel name.
Anyway, thanks everyone for watching.